How are we doing on following up with potential clients?
I've set up a very promising meeting.
What's the company?
Laconia.
Who owns Laconia?
Owen Jasper.
Jane Austen's novels are as true today as they ever were. I mean, human nature doesn't change. And we see that in the film. You know, the Hamptons and Manhattan, that is Lyme Regis and the city in Regency times. Everything is heightened for us, and it segues together so beautifully. Was there a really strong attempt to keep the similarities, to refer to the book a lot? Because I think that's interesting.
I think so too. I discussed this with the filmmakers when I first met them as we were going into production, and I think the lion's share of that work was done before the actors came on board in the creating of the screenplay. And it was one movie of all the recent ones I've worked on where we did very little improvisation. The dialogue was finely crafted to have just enough, I think, of Jane Austen's rhythm and the gist of what she was saying without using the exact words. But there's certain lines that in particular, as scripted, just feel like they're of a different era. And I think that was no accident.
Yes,
and
yes.
There's all different sorts of shots and ways in which people are gathered that feels also like it might have done in the 1800s.
Isn't that fantastic? I love it. And also your character, Wren's last name is a different character in the book, so.
Yes.
The man from Laconia is here.
Allow me to introduce you to our head of corporate PR.
Just under the table, I dropped some papers.
Ow! You know, Wren is single, and it makes everyone around her uncomfortable. And I think that's a sort of universal experience. Why do you suppose that is?
What a beautiful observation. You know, I never noticed that before, but you are absolutely right. Wren isn't uncomfortable being single, but everyone around her is uncomfortable with it. I think that there's something especially welcoming about the community that I've found here in Nashville, where I live, that perhaps that's one of the reasons I was drawn to Nashville in the first place. I think perhaps in certain social circles, and this one you describe in the movie is no different, there's a sense, even in this day and age, that there must be something not right if someone is not in a relationship and not putting constant time and energy into getting into one.
Right.
When the truth is that's not the end all be all. It can be delightful, but it's not. I think the goal is to get to a place where you don't feel like anything's missing.
My CFO will be here shortly. Wren, will you greet him?
Sure.
Right, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
There's a total vibe, totes possible vibe. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I really like about Wren is that she's so strong and powerful. She keeps the group together.
Yeah.
And she's a woman. She keeps the man together and the women together. And I think that's a powerful statement to make, especially in this sort of high profile, you know, big industry kind of way. And also, I want to say the millennials are hilarious. And they do appear in Austen, of course, in many of her books. They're hilarious. They're like a Greek chorus, but they're also, you know, time immemorial. There's always been girls who at a certain age let loose. They're silly because from then on, maybe there's not that much chance to be silly. So it must
You're so right.
Was it fun being around that energy?
It was so much fun. Everybody in the cast was really notably fun to be around. I think it was it's definitely up there in the very top most fun casts I've ever had the chance to work with. And they're all each one of them is a character in and of themselves. They're all kind of larger than life in a way. And they're like that in person anyhow. It's a lot of energies all together. Because it was such a big cast and a lower budget movie, we didn't all have trailers to go scatter off to in between shots. We were around each other constantly. A lot of us brought our dogs to the sets. There were dog parties. I loved that I had these beautiful one-on-one interactions with every single character. I had my time to really enjoy each one of them, and I did. There was just not a day on set that I wasn't excited and thrilled about getting to see these actors and their work and just get to
great,
bounce off
and let them shine. That's to be completely superficial. So your character had the world's greatest collection of blouses.
I know.
I was just like, where can I get these? Just sensational. It must have been great to sort of swan around in them.
The wardrobe and the wardrobe designer on this was, he was something else. Just, I couldn't agree more. And it wasn't just Wren's costumes, but everyone. And I don't think I'd appreciated in person just how extraordinarily
exquisite
coordinated it all was, with all the people that were going to
treat.
appear in a scene. Yeah, the visuals of it, I was struck by that as well as a viewer. It reminded me of when I used to love watching Sex and the City and see those outfits. But you know, a lot of it, at least for my character, was vintage clothing. So Amit would go to these vintage stores and pull all this stuff, which is why it looked so eclectic and rich and vintage at the same time. But also it meant I didn't get to keep my wardrobe at the end of it because it all had to be returned.
Well, you're on celluloid forever, or video.
Yes.
Yes, I can. She's moving like she's shaking off her old self.
Tell me it's not too late.